Hi, I'm Nyla. Today, I'm going to tell you my story. But before I continue, please share, and subscribe to hear more stories like this. 5 years ago, I was sitting at my in-laws' dining table, pushing around the remains of a pot roast, while my father-in-law, Richard, held court. My husband, Jason, was next to me, his hand occasionally squeezing mine under the table. A silent apology. "So you're really going through with this business idea?" Richard asked, not bothering to hide his skepticism. "What was it again? Some kind of online therapy thing?" "Digital wellness platform," I corrected him, forcing a smile. "It combines mental health resources with personalized coaching." "Richard, Nyla has a master's in psychology and worked in tech for years," my mother-in-law Diane said gently. "I think it sounds wonderful." "A master's degree and some coding doesn't make you a businesswoman," Richard said, cutting into his meat. "Jason, talk some sense into your wife. The startup failure rate is what, 90%? And that's for people who actually know what they're doing." "Dad, we've discussed this," Jason said. "Nyla's business plan is solid. We've saved enough to give it a real shot." "You mean you've saved enough?" Richard corrected. "Your engineering salary that's about to disappear while she plays entrepreneur?" "I'm sitting right here," I said, my voice surprisingly steady. "And I didn't ask for your approval, Richard." "You should have," he snapped. "Someone needs to be the voice of reason. Jason's too blinded by whatever this is." He waved his fork between us. "You have a perfectly good job at the hospital. Stable, benefits, and you want to throw it away on some pipe dream?" "Richard!" Diane gasped. "It's fine," I said, though it wasn't. "Everyone's entitled to their opinion." "It's not an opinion, it's a fact. You'll fail, crawl back to your old job if they'll even take you, and Jason will have wasted his savings." "But hey, what do I know? I only built a successful accounting firm from nothing." "Honey, please," his wife pleaded. "What? Someone has to say it. I'm looking out for my son." "By insulting his wife?" Jason stood up, throwing his napkin on the table. "We're leaving." "Sit down," Richard commanded. "You're being dramatic." "No, Dad. I'm being supportive of my wife, something you clearly know nothing about." "Jason," I said quietly, "it's okay." "It's not okay," he replied, but he sat down anyway. "Look," Richard said with a sigh, "I'm just trying to save you both the heartache. These little online businesses are a dime a dozen. What makes yours so special? What's your edge?" "My edge is understanding what people really need," I replied, "and building something that delivers it efficiently and compassionately." "Compassion doesn't pay the bills," Richard scoffed. "Dad, that's enough," Jason warned. "Fine, fine. Throw away your career. Just don't come crying to me when it all falls apart." "Trust me," I said, looking him directly in the eyes. "I won't." That dinner was just one of dozens of encounters where Richard made his feelings about me clear. He'd been skeptical of me from day one, the girl from modest means who'd somehow snagged his golden boy son. Nothing I did was ever good enough. The next morning, I quit my job at the hospital. Jason was supportive but nervous. "Are you sure about the timing?" he asked as I submitted my resignation email. "If I wait for the perfect moment, it'll never come," I said. "Besides, your dad lit a fire under me." "Ignore him," Jason said, wrapping his arms around me. "He doesn't know what he's talking about." "Doesn't he, though? He built a successful business." "Yeah, 30 years ago in a completely different industry. And he had help from his father. The startup money was a loan he never had to repay." "Wait, what?" I turned to face him. He never mentioned that part. "Of course not. Doesn't fit his self-made man narrative. Why do you think I never ask him for business advice?" For the next year, I worked harder than I ever had. My digital wellness platform, Mindful Path, started small but grew steadily. I secured partnerships with 3 major insurance providers. Jason took on consulting work to supplement our income. Richard, of course, never missed an opportunity to predict our downfall. "How's the little website going?" he'd ask at family gatherings, his tone making it clear he expected bad news. "Actually, we just signed our 4th corporate client," I'd answer. Well, early days yet, he'd respond, changing the subject. By our second year, Mindful Path had 15 employees and had been featured in several industry publications. Richard's tone shifted slightly. Surprised you've kept it afloat this long, he said at Thanksgiving dinner. Though these tech bubbles always burst eventually. It's not a bubble when you're providing real value, I replied. We'll see about that, he muttered. It was around this time that I started hearing rumors about Richard's firm. Jason's cousin Marcus mentioned that Richard was losing clients. Is everything okay with your dad's business? I asked Jason that night. Why do you ask? Jason set down his book. Just something Marcus said. About Ashford and Sons poaching some of your dad's clients. Dad would never admit it, but he's struggling to keep up with changes in the industry. He refuses to update their systems. Still does everything the way he learned in the 80s. Has he asked you for help? You know plenty about modernizing systems. I've offered. Many times. He always says he doesn't need advice from some computer programmer about running his business. By our third year, Mindful Path had expanded internationally. We'd hired a talented executive team and moved into gorgeous offices downtown. I was featured in Business Insider's 40 Under 40 list. The night the article came out, I received a text from Diane. So proud of you, sweetheart. Always knew you could do it. Nothing from Richard. Jason and I bought a beautiful house in the suburbs. We hosted a housewarming party, and everyone came, including Richard and Diane. Nice place, Richard commented, looking around with narrowed eyes. Seems a bit extravagant. You sure you're not overextending yourselves? We're doing fine, Dad, Jason replied. All these tech companies look successful until they're not, Richard warned. Mindful Path isn't just a tech company, I interjected. We provide a vital service, and we're profitable. It wasn't until our fourth year that things really came to a head. Jason and I were having a quiet Sunday brunch when his phone rang. It was Diane, and she was crying. She wants us to come over, Jason said after hanging up. Now, something about Dad and the business. When we arrived at their house, Richard was sitting in his armchair, staring blankly at the wall. Diane led us into the kitchen. He's been served with a lawsuit, she whispered, from a major client. They're claiming negligence, saying he missed some crucial tax shelter opportunities. The potential damages are significant. How significant? Jason asked. Enough to bankrupt the firm, she replied, her voice breaking. And maybe us too. Can't his insurance cover it? He let the coverage lapse 6 months ago, said it was too expensive. When we returned to the living room, Richard didn't look up. Dad, Jason said gently, what happened? What happened? Richard repeated, his voice hollow. I trusted the wrong people, delegated to idiots, and now everything I built is crumbling. There must be something we can do, I said. Richard finally looked at me, and for the first time, there was no condescension in his eyes, just defeat. Unless you know a miracle worker who can modernize an entire accounting firm in record time and somehow convince Westridge Corporation not to sue me into oblivion, there's nothing anyone can do. I exchanged a look with Jason. We both knew what needed to happen. We're going to help you through this, I said firmly. Over the next few weeks, Jason and I practically lived at Richard's firm. The situation was even worse than we'd feared. His systems were hopelessly outdated, his staff demoralized, and his client list dwindling. I've been going through the books, Jason told his father. Dad, you've been operating at a loss for over a year. That's impossible, Richard protested. I would know. Would you? When was the last time you really looked at the numbers instead of just assuming everything was fine? One evening after everyone else had left, Richard found me working late in his office. Why are you doing this? He asked, leaning against the doorframe. Doing what? Helping me. After everything I said about you and your business, all the times I predicted you'd fail. I looked up from my laptop, because it's the right thing to do, and because you're Jason's father. But not because I'm your father-in-law, he noted. I didn't respond to that. We both knew where we stood. A week later, the situation reached a breaking point. The lawsuit was proceeding. and 3 more major clients had announced their intention to leave. Richard called a family meeting. "I've made a decision," he announced. "I'm going to close the firm." "Dad, no," Jason protested. "It's the only way. Cut my losses before things get worse." "What about your employees?" I asked. "What about them?" Richard said bitterly. "They'll find other jobs." "Some of them have been with you for decades," Diane reminded him, "and I've been good to them. But business is business." "Or," I said carefully, "you could consider another option." Everyone turned to look at me. "What option?" Richard asked. "A partnership with Mindful Path." "You want to partner with an accounting firm?" He looked confused. "Not exactly. Mindful Path has been expanding our corporate wellness programs. We've been looking to acquire smaller firms that could benefit from our infrastructure while bringing in complementary skills." "You want to buy me out?" Richard said flatly. "I want to offer your employees a place to land. I want to help your clients receive the service they deserve. And yes, I want to resolve this situation for your family's sake." "What would happen to me in this scenario?" "That would depend on what you want. You could retire, or..." "Or what?" I took a deep breath. "Or you could come work for me." The silence that followed was deafening. Richard stared at me, his expression unreadable. Finally, he laughed. A short, harsh sound. "You must be joking." "I'm completely serious. You have decades of experience that could be valuable, if you're willing to adapt and learn new approaches." "You want me to work for my daughter-in-law? The one whose business I said would fail?" "Yes," I said simply. "That's exactly what I'm proposing." Richard stood up abruptly and left the room. We heard the front door slam. "Give him time," Diane said softly. "His pride is all he has left right now." It took 3 days. And then, on the 4th morning, Richard appeared at my office. My assistant showed him in, looking slightly alarmed at his disheveled appearance. "Mr. Burton to see you," she announced. "Thank you, Alicia," I said. "Could you give us a moment?" Once we were alone, Richard remained standing, his hands clasped behind his back. "I've thought about your offer," he said stiffly, and I'd like to know more details. What position did you have in mind? What salary? What would be expected of me?" I gestured to the chair across from my desk. "Please, sit down." "I envision you in an advisory role," I explained, "working with our financial wellness team to develop programs specifically tailored to accountants and financial professionals. Your experience would be invaluable." "I don't know the first thing about wellness programs," he objected. "You don't need to. That's what the rest of our team is for. You know, accounting and accountants. That's what we need from you." "And the salary?" I named a figure, significantly less than what he'd been paying himself at his firm, but still generous. "That's all?" he asked, his eyebrows rising. "That's the starting salary," I corrected him. "With room for growth based on performance. Performance reviews. By you. By our HR department, with input from me as CEO, yes." He was silent for a long moment, considering. "And my employees? My clients?" "We'll interview all your current staff for positions within our organization. I can't promise we'll keep everyone, but we'll give them fair consideration. As for your clients, we'll work with them to transition to other accounting firms we partner with." "And the lawsuit?" "Our legal team will handle it. I can't promise a particular outcome, but we have resources your firm doesn't." Richard sighed deeply. "You've thought of everything, haven't you?" "I try to," I replied. "This isn't how I imagined ending my career. It's not an ending, Richard. It's a transition." He looked around my office, at the awards on the walls, the view of the city skyline. "You've done well," he admitted, the words seeming to cost him. "Better than I expected." "I know. I suppose I don't have much choice." "You always have choices. This is just the best one available right now." After another long pause, he nodded. "When do I start?" "We'll need a few weeks to work out the acquisition details. Shall we say the 1st of next month?" "Fine." He stood up and extended his hand formally. Thank you for the opportunity, Miss Burton. I took his hand and shook it firmly. You're welcome, Mr. Burton. And it's still Nyla. The first few weeks were as awkward as you might expect. Richard stayed in his lane, speaking only when spoken to in meetings. His pride was wounded, but he was professional. After about a month, he started to loosen up a bit. His insights were actually valuable, especially when we were developing a financial wellness module for accounting firms. One day, after a productive strategy session, he lingered after everyone else had left. You're good at this, he said, running a business, building something meaningful. Thank you, I replied, gathering my notes. I was wrong about you. I looked up, surprised by the admission. Yes, you were. You're not going to make this easy for me, are you? He asked, a hint of irritation showing through. Make what easy? Apologizing. Is that what you're doing? He sighed. I'm trying to... I set down my papers and gave him my full attention. Go ahead, then. Richard shifted uncomfortably. I judged you unfairly, made assumptions based on, well, nothing valid. And I was wrong. I'm sorry. I studied him for a moment. The apology seemed sincere enough, but it didn't erase years of condescension and criticism. I appreciate you saying that, I said finally. But you don't forgive me, he noted. No, I don't. Forgiveness is earned, Richard. It takes time and consistent effort, not just words. He nodded slowly. I understand. For what it's worth, I'm grateful for what you've done for me. For Diane, saving us from financial ruin. I didn't do it for you, I said honestly. I did it for Jason and for the employees who deserved better. Fair enough. He moved toward the door, then paused. Do you think... Is there a chance we could start over someday? I considered the question. I don't believe in starting over. Too much has happened. But moving forward differently? That might be possible. Eventually. He nodded again, accepting the answer for what it was. Good night, Nyla. Good night, Richard. That was 6 months ago. Richard is still working for me, still learning how to fit into the company I built. Sometimes I catch him looking at me with something like respect in his eyes. As for Mindful Path, we're now expanding into Europe, with over 300 employees worldwide. Jason left his job to join the company last year, heading up our tech division. We're expecting our first child, a daughter, in 3 months. Richard asked just once if we were planning to name her Diane, after his wife. I told him we'd already chosen a name, Zora, after my grandmother. He didn't argue. Sometimes success really is the best revenge, not because it hurts those who doubted you, but because it frees you from needing their approval. I don't need Richard's validation anymore. I never did. I built this company despite him, not to prove him wrong. And in the end, that made the victory even sweeter. So now I'm curious. Have you ever had someone dismiss your dreams, only to later come to you for help? What did you do? Did you offer assistance? Or did you turn them away?